Hey guys, before the video gets underway, the last time I asked for likes on a video, I asked for 40 of them on the Frederick Anderson video, and you guys surpassed that by a long shot. You guys hit like 52 likes on that video. I'm not going to ask for as many in this video, but if we can hit 25 likes on this video, it would be absolutely amazing. Welcome to Downtown Sports. My name is Downtown Steven Brown, and in today's video, we're going to talk about a little bit of Maple Leafs news, or at least some rumors, and we're going to have some fun with them. You know, I've had these things for so long, sometimes I just forget that I'm even wearing them. And it all starts with this tweet from Roger Dickland, who's a former NHL scout and who has OHL media credentials. And when I had heard this on the most recent episode of the Steve Dangle podcast, I raced to make this video because I'm a panicky Leaf fan and I would want to know how that would affect the grand scheme of things if they did give $2 million a season to Kyle Clifford. And I'm aware of how valuable Kyle Clifford's unique skill set is on this team. And I'm aware of how he's helped guys like Kasperi Kapanen kind of find his game. But also, at the same time, I'm not going to pretend like Kyle Clifford has been the messiah for this team and fixed everything and the Maple Leafs' effort problem is gone. Because Kyle Clifford was there for the game that the Maple Leafs blew to the Buffalo Sabres 5-2. He was there when they got trounced by the Pittsburgh Penguins 5-2. And he was there and even fought in the game when they lost to David Ayres. And his grit and energy didn't seem to energize or stir the team or make them give a crap any more than what he did. And maybe you can make an argument that the team needs another Kyle Clifford. They need more guys like him. They need more guys to follow in his footsteps and play that high energy game, to play that gritty game, you know, to drop the gloves and whatnot. And if it's contagious and it's already made Kasperi Kapanen start to play like that, then maybe they need another guy like Kyle Clifford in there. But the question that I would like to pose is, can you afford to pay a guy who plays 9 minutes a night $2 million? Can you afford to pay a guy like Kyle Clifford $2 million a season? Is grit, is that energy guy the main problem with this team, or would you rather allocate that money to the blue line? Because I don't know about you, but the 2012-2013 Maple Leafs led the NHL in fighting majors, and the energy that they gained from those fights didn't seem to cover up any of the defensive woes that team had. So I've made up this little armchair GM for next season, and right now there are 3 players missing from this armchair GM, and the Maple Leafs would have a total of $6 million to fill out the 3 remaining roster spots for this team. And on long-term injury reserve, I have a little list of players that I think would be interesting options to either be traded that are already on the team to be internal options to fill those 3 spots, or that would be options for UFA signings. And the Toronto Maple Leafs and Kyle Dubas over the last couple of years have been busy in the international free agent signing pool, so I'd expect them to add maybe 1 or 2 international free agents that could add into that mix as well. And the goal here is to fill out the 4th line and to find a D partner for Morgan Rielly that would allow the Maple Leafs to bump Justin Holl and Timothy Liljegren down. So let's go ahead and plug Kyle Clifford into this lineup right now. And that leaves us with $4 million to fill those 2 spots. And that would only leave us with a 21-man roster, so only 1 bench player. Pierre Engvall is a really interesting player to me because he only has 1 point in his last 19 games, and that's the goal that he scored against David Ayres. So I don't even know if that really counts or not, but before that 19-game extended slump, he was on pace for about 40 points or so in an 82-game season. And I'm not going to discount the slump or anything like that because ever since he signed that $1.25 million contract extension for 2 seasons, he's been kind of like the king of nothing. Nothing really happens when he's on the ice. Nothing good, nothing bad. But I do still think that player has potential, and I would like to see him in the lineup next year because he adds versatility to the lineup. He can play the left side. He can play the right side. He can fill in at center if you really, really need him to. He can play on your penalty kill. He can play a little bit higher up in the lineup. He's a decent skater. He's an effective bottom 6 forward. But if the Maple Leafs really did need to bury him in the AHL, they would be on the hook for $175,000 in the first year and $125,000 in the second year. So something to consider if he's not going to be part of your team. So now the Maple Leafs would be left with $2.8 million to go out and get a defenseman to play with Morgan Rielly. Now, you can kind of play around with this a little bit. I mean, if you wanted to say trade Alexander Kerfoot, that would leave them with $6.3 million to go out and replace Alexander Kerfoot and sign the defenseman to play with Morgan Rielly. So let's just slot in Joe Thornton here because I think that that's a fun option. That would leave the Maple Leafs with $5.6 million to go out there and sign a defenseman to play with Morgan Rielly. But now you're looking at that bottom six. Not as good as what it was before. I don't know how much Jumbo Joe has left in the tank. I don't know if you want him playing every single night. And at center, nonetheless, I think he'd be a really effective player for the Maple Leafs on the wing, and it would be so much fun to see him feeding passes to Austin Matthews. But if you're looking at this with Alexander Kerfoot still in there, I mean, look, the Maple Leafs got absolutely hosed on the negotiations with Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner. Specifically, I mean, you can't really get hosed in a contract negotiation with Austin Matthews because he's one of the greatest goal scorers in the entire NHL, right? But you would have liked to have gotten him on a longer term contract. With Mitch Marner, yeah, they got absolutely hosed in that negotiations. I would have liked to have paid Mitch Marner $9 million over a 6-year contract, even $9.5 million over a 6-year contract, and really should have just signed for 8 years. But my whole point here is that we made compromises with the top end of our roster. Fine, I can live with it. Mitch Marner's going to put up between 80 and 90 points a season anyway. But nobody from Ayr, Ontario should be forcing the Toronto Maple Leafs to make compromises with their blue line. And it's nothing against Kyle Clifford personally, right? Because he didn't come out and say that he wanted $2 million this season. It was some guy named Dick on Twitter that said it. But I'm cool. I'm cool with this roster, and I'm cool with Kyle Clifford coming back. I'm cool with giving up a 2nd-round pick opposed to a 3rd-round pick in the trade because that was one of the conditions. If Kyle Clifford re-signed, then the 3rd upgraded to a 2nd next year. I'm cool with that. I'm cool with bringing Kyle Clifford back, but not at $2 million. $1 million max, because $3.8 million in this scenario to get a defenseman to play with Morgan Rielly is a lot more doable. And if Kyle Clifford, look, if you're really the lifelong Leaf fan that you said that you were, and it's really that big of a deal to put on the jersey and stuff like that, sign for league minimum like Jason Spezza did, because you know what? $4.1 million is a lot better than 3.8. We're in this situation right now where we're paying a lot of money to our top end forwards, and it would be really easy for me to trade one of those 4 guys and free up a bunch of cap space and say, okay, now go out there and get a defenseman and you can sign Kyle Clifford. But I'm not going to do that. And you know why? Because I don't want them to be right. Who's them? Leaf fans. Because Leaf fans seem to actively cheer against their team all the time. I want to see us win. I want to see us win the Stanley Cup with the guys that they said we were going to win the Stanley Cup with 3 years ago. Okay, I'm tired of running guys out of town. I'm tired of moving the goalpost and stuff like that. No, stick to a plan. You had this plan, stick to it. These are the guys that we're going to ride and die with. Ride and die with them. Until it obviously makes sense, right? I'm not just going to run the team into the ground. Because looking at it from this situation, go ahead and give Kyle Clifford a 3-year contract. I don't care. Make it $1 million. If you're looking at this situation right here, $3.8 million is pretty sweet. And then at this point, if you're really not a fan of Alexander Kerfoot, dump him. Include him in a trade. Just get picks or prospects from him. Now we're up to $7.3 million to replace him and get a guy to play with Morgan Rielly. Let's say they do sign a guy like Joe Thornton. I mean, plug him in on the 4th line. Maybe Pierre Engvall plays center for a little bit to give Joe Thornton a little bit of a break out there. Maybe they do bring back a guy like Patrick Marleau and stuff like that. You want to talk about the grit or the leadership and stuff like that, or needing a kick in the pants and whatnot. What better guys to bring in there than Patrick Marleau and Joe Thornton? Those guys aren't going to take shit from anyone. And then at that point, you're looking at almost $6 million to go out there and get a defenseman to play with Morgan Riley, and you got yourself a bench player. And I really like Dylan DeMello as a potential D partner for Morgan Riley. He's 27 years old. He's a right-handed shot defenseman. I would describe him as like a younger Ron Hainsey, which I think is the perfect D partner for Morgan Riley. Not Ron Hainsey right now. No, that's not what I meant. Don't take that out of context. And you're going to notice the $2.9 million left over there. And if you don't think that Jason Spezza and Joe Thornton can handle it at their ages, well, then you can relegate Joe Thornton to a bench role and mix him into games here and there and stuff like that. Or maybe they don't even add Joe Thornton, you know? They can go out there and get someone else to be that extra center depth. And that's my whole point here, okay? I'm not sacrificing depth on the blue line, and I'm not sacrificing center depth for Kyle friggin' Clifford to go out there and drop the gloves. If I were to prioritize the three, center depth, defensive depth, and dropping the gloves, it would go, in terms of the Leafs and their situation, it would go depth on the blue line, center depth, and then the grit. Does that make sense? Is that fair? I'm not saying that it's not important, but out of those three things, out of those three needs, it's the least important. And if they were to prioritize those three things backwards, I can already see what we'd be talking about a year from now. They'd be talking about, oh, the Maple Leafs don't have enough depth up front to survive the injuries. Oh, the Maple Leafs don't have enough depth on the blue line to survive injuries in the long, grueling season. And even when everyone is healthy, the blue line's not good enough anyway. But you know what? We got that grit. But let me know what your thoughts and opinions are down in the comment section down below. How much are you comfortable giving Kyle Clifford? Do you think that he's worth giving $2 million to a season? Do you think that his effect, the effect that he has on the team, really is that strong or that potent? Let me know. And leave a like on this video if you did like it, and subscribe for more, because more is always on the way. And guys, stay safe out there.